It's time to turn the page to 2025 fantasy football leagues. We give you our favorite targets and biggest busts for the early 2025 Underdog Fantasy average draft position rankings. All this and more. It's the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fixed this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and this is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. The 2024 season has come and gone, and today we flip the script and we turn the page for 2025, and we talk about our biggest targets and busts for the early Underdog ADP. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and tonight I'm joined by a known Eagles backer and Bradley Cooper stan, our entertainment and NFL betting expert here at IBT. He's Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Steve, how's it going? How did you enjoy a Super Bowl blowout on Sunday?
I enjoyed it a lot. I wish I was getting the love I deserve, because I called the Eagles blowout on our last show before the Super Bowl. Like I very vocally said that this was going to look a lot like the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl, and it looked exactly like it. And where's my parade, and where's my people? Also, these false accusations that I get from you, like every week, I feel like you make this weird claim that I don't know if I stand Bradley Cooper. That's a stretch.
Why don't you? What do you got against Bradley Cooper?
I just don't stand him. I think he's fine.
I mean, he's making cheesesteaks. He's making music bangers. He's making directing, acting. Like, he's also winning Philadelphia the Super Bowl. Like, what don't you like about him, Steve? Jeez.
I don't dislike him. I think he's fine. I think he's great. Even I just think to call myself a stan. I only have room in my heart for so many people. I just don't know if Bradley Cooper's quite there.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'm deflecting some of my love for Mr. Bradley Cooper onto you. So I apologize for the inconvenience to you. Also, a guy I like to make up lies about. He's a big business, light ranch and son of a bitch. Joining us tonight, Eric Romoff. Eric, what did you think of Philly ending the Chiefs bid for a 3P and Steve's disrespect for the man who started the night for him?
I mean, look, entirely predictable outcome, right? Steve was bang on in his analysis, drawing those comparisons to the Bucs team that toppled the Chiefs a few years ago. One that I saw coming as well. I had a nice alt line ticket on the Eagles, as well as a few unders out there that cashed. And look, I had a phenomenal Super Bowl. I am not an Eagles fan by trade, by birth, but I imported several to my household for the Super Bowl, and we were obnoxious. We were driving through the streets of Cowboys country, honking our horn and chanting out the Eagles chant, and we flipped over a Toyota Corolla, right? Like we were out there doing it right for the
Good
Eagles.
Stuff.
I appreciate that. And I just gotta say, like, I love Philadelphia, love the city of Philadelphia, love the people of Philadelphia. Why do we have to riot when we win and show how much we love the city and the Eagles? So I'm there with you. I also kind of wanted to jump in that riot a little bit, just because I was 3 yards short of hitting my parlay of the week. Absolute bummer. Patrick Mahomes had it, got called back on some rushing yards there. So that was a bummer. I was also just like extremely hurting on Sunday. So I was just happy to be there, happy to be awake watching the game. We celebrated my younger brother's 21st birthday Saturday night. The bar did not kick us out, boys, until 4:30 a.m. That's not legal in Pennsylvania. I didn't care, but we were having a good old time out there as well. Appreciate everyone out there who was celebrating with us. Great time. So just happy to be alive that day. But yeah, I think we all have our complaints all the way around. Great to hear Eric and fam were riding in the streets. We're also joined by a man who moves the needle for this particular program, Yinzer Ginger. IUP Crimson Hawk, formerly our audio engineer behind the scenes, Kyle Scott. Jim, how are the vibes out there in the Berg? Is everyone looking forward to turning the page to a fresh 2025 NFL season?
Oh, yeah. Everyone has their eyes looked directly forward to 2025's NFL season. There are a select few still relishing in Kenny Pickett's Super Bowl win, of course. A couple other Pitt alumni with rings on Sunday. But yeah, I mean, for the city out here, it's Penn season, baby. And soon to be Pirate season. But yeah, it's not football season until it's football season.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Until the boys get down in Latrobe, Pittsburgh, they're going to enjoy some shitty Pirates baseball, some up and down Penguins hockey. But, we're there for it because we love sports. We love this state as well. Also, shout out to the IBT family. As always, thank you so much for tuning in with us. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy this type of content, please do us a quick favor and like this video. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. It's the easiest way to support us here. And a couple quick announcements as well for the company. Our 2025 Draft Night Out tickets have been released. This is a big deal. If you want to come draft with us and plus 200 of our closest fantasy football enthusiast and analyst friends on August 9th in Canton, Ohio, as part of the Fantasy Football Expo. Well, tickets that are on sale now, they're available. We actually put the link in the episode description, so make sure you check it out. There will be whiskey. There will be tequila, especially for Eric, expensive tequila. There will be beer. There will be food. And no pun intended, but there'll be everything in between. We got a ton of giveaways to get involved with. The shot wheel will be spinning. We brought out the shot wheel last year. That was an absolute blast. I didn't take the shots with people because I was also, again, hurting. Rough night before. But I think maybe we make that some type of deal, Eric, where for the shot wheel, either I or the person hosting that specific shot wheel has to do the shot as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm here for it, right? Like we're out there trying to build community. Maybe it is whoever is taking that shot can point their little finger at which member of the IBT family they want riding along with them, right? So definitely like this idea of making it more of a communal thing as that shot wheel spins.
Yeah, I was just hoping that the pickle one would get landed on. It never did. It was always pretty something like, yeah, the bar, we had great service, great bartenders all around, but they really kind of limited us in some of the shots that were available. The pickle one was the only fun one and never landed on it. So people had pretty straightforward fireball. I think there was a couple green teas, maybe an orange tea in there, but nonetheless, we also have a ton of new league types as well this year. We're offering best ball. We're offering IDP. We're offering Superflex. We're offering a Champions League for former Draft Night Out champions to come back and test your mettle against the best of the best. Also, we have Dynasty League for those who think you're going to attend almost every single year. You want to be out there in the mix. We're going to do a startup draft, and then we're also going to have some rookie drafts each and every year moving forward as well. Tickets all are available online at inbetweenmedia.com. Also, link in the description of this video. Also, tickets on sale for the inaugural IBT Classic are also now out there. If you guys get to Canton earlier for the Fantasy Football Expo, we got an 18-hole 4-man scramble. Beer and hot dogs at the turn. Beer carts are gonna be rolling. Steve's gonna be staffing one of those, rolling out on the course and pouring everyone shots and a couple beers as well. Catered meal after the round. Mr. Mike's Cater is gonna be hooking us up with some meat, some veggies, some potatoes, some salad bar. You guys know me. I love the salad action. I love the veggie trays. So
I was gonna say it's gonna be a stupid veggie tray option.
Hey man, gotta look out for the vegetarians, right? And also a chance to win Super Bowl tickets. If you get a hole-in-one on hole 9, which is a par 3, 150 yards, pretty short hole, you can win Super Bowl tickets. We also have additional prizes like TVs, a smoker for some of the other par 3s that we're auctioning off as well if you can hit a hole-in-one dinger. Steve, over under, you think the amount of hole-in-ones people are going to hit?
Under. Zero. Nada.
0.
Not one. Everyone. So, all right. Here's the thing: is people who don't golf think hole-in-ones are a lot more common than they are. They're so uncommon that the common celebration for you getting a hole-in-one is to buy everybody in the clubhouse a drink on you, because it's such a wildly unusual thing. My grandfather played golf for, I'm not even kidding, I think 60 years and had one. And he was a good golfer.
Mm.
They don't happen often.
Well, Eric, if someone does it, they can win Super Bowl tickets. How about that?
Yeah, and let the record show that I would like to state that whoever eventually hits that hole in one, I believed in them all the way, and I would make a great companion to the upcoming Super Bowl with those free tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys are going over there to inbetweenmedia.com, checking out all the events we have to offer. Still a couple more we're rolling out later here in the year, but those are some of the big ones happening during the Fantasy Football Expo, the IBT Classic, and of course, Draft Night Out, back locked and loaded. So yeah, excited for that, guys. That's something we've kind of been working on in the background for a couple weeks now. So was very excited to share that with everybody, but almost as excited as I am to dive into some fantasy football discussion here in Temperature Check. Let's get it started.
Temperature check.
That's really spicy. Holy sh**.
All right, it's Temperature Check. We're checking out the latest Underdog Fantasy ADP. We're going to give you a couple busts, a couple targets that, guys, hey, we're looking after in these streets, or guys we're totally avoiding. And Eric, I'm going to throw things right to you, my friend. Who is someone you are targeting currently in Underdog Fantasy best ball drafts? And if redraft leagues were happening right now, you'd kind of be on that same path.
Yeah, I like to go dumpster diving a little bit, dig down in the dark depths of the ADP. The first name that comes to mind isn't too far down, but it's Trey Benson. He's sitting at ADP 145, almost 146 overall, RB 42. And a lot of this is just the embodiment of the type of speculation that you're doing when you draft a few days or a few weeks after the Super Bowl, right? Like, he's a guy that is very clearly next man up in this Arizona Cardinals backfield, and he is behind a player in James Conner who's turning 30 before the start of this upcoming season, right? So, for me, if you can go out and get a player in Trey Benson that, will either be potentially stepping into that starting role by the kickoff of the season, or is a premium handcuff for this type of price tag, RB 42. These are the guys that you want on the backside of your bench, especially in best ball.
Okay, Steve, I know you love some Trey Benson. I'm a little bit lower on him. I just think because I was expecting him to take a big step in year one, and I maybe I'm just burned by this entire running back crop that we had in 2024. But do you still believe in Benson too?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason not to believe in Trey Benson. Listen, even last season, I still think he was the best running back on the roster. Like, it's not a question of talent. It was really just kind of getting him acclimated to the NFL and not like wasting him on a year that they thought they weren't going to be that good. You save him. James Conner's contract indicates to me that they are not super committed to him long term. This is the year Trey Benson gets to kind of get the keys to the offense a little bit in terms of the starting running back position. And we saw him at Florida State. He was unbelievably explosive. Like, he is a big, strong back, don't get me wrong, but he is fast and he can bust it for 80 yards on any play. Like, this guy is a big play waiting to happen. He is going to be a fantasy league winner, I think, next year.
I think it's going to take a couple more years. James Conner just got re-upped, so I don't mind the speculative, pick at kind of where you're getting him here in the 140s, but in that range, I think there's some rookies I'd rather roll the dice on with. But either way, I appreciate the analysis from both you gentlemen. Steve, I want to throw it over to you. You're interested in a veteran wide receiver here. How the tables have turned, my friend. What are you liking about Amari Cooper all the way down at ADP 156, wide receiver 67?
Yeah, I like that he could be in a new situation. Amari Cooper, I think, is hitting the free agent market currently. So there's nothing that's telling me, like, I mean, I know his time in Buffalo wasn't great, but it's not like he forgot how to play football or got like ridiculously old at the ripe old age of like 30. So I think there's still a year or two left in Amari Cooper to be at least a productive wide receiver, a wide receiver 2, maybe. Like, if he goes and signs somewhere like Baltimore or New England or something like that,
Yeah,
that's a really valuable landing spot for him at the 67th wide receiver. Do you know some of the guys that are going ahead of him? I mean, like, it's like Jags, it's guys that Jags would look at and say, you're a Jag. Like, it's not good. Like, I mean, Rashad Bateman's going ahead of him, and, it's just ugly ahead of him. Amari Cooper still got it. I think he's still a good player. I think he'll be productive. I could see him going for 1,000 yards again next season easily.
Eric, where do you kind of land on Cooper here? Because I think we all had pretty high expectations, at least like mid wide receiver 2 expectations in Buffalo, and never ended up pushing even for a starting, role in that offense. Was a guy who would come in and definitely saw his handful of snaps, but Mac Hollins was still out there running the X quite a bit. We had Keon Coleman coming in, also taking a lot of valuable snaps from the X and the flanker position. So where do you kind of sit with Amari Cooper? Do you think he is washed, or do you think at wide receiver 67 currently you're willing to roll the dice that he lands in a good situation, like Steve said?
Yeah, legitimate open question as to Amari Cooper's capability heading into this upcoming season, right? Like, I tend to err a little bit closer to Steve's side of the spectrum. That I think he's still got some gas in the tank. But I mean, it's kind of wild to look back on the season and think about that trade to Buffalo. And at least with what we saw from Jameis Winston for a few weeks, he probably would have been more productive if he stayed in Cleveland, which was certainly not the sentiment when the deal was made. Look, going to that offense, it was just a logjam, right? It was the same reason why we were banging on Khalil Shakir for the entirety of the regular season. There were just so many mouths to feed. It was hard for anyone, including Amari Cooper, to establish any sort of meaningful role or snap count. I do think, drafting at this time of year, like you're trying to take advantage of uncertainty, right? Uncertainty breeds chaos, which breeds opportunity. This is a pretty thin wide receiver class in terms of free agency. So while he might not be the top prize for many teams out there, there are several wide receiver needy teams that might be looking at him as a plan B or plan C. So I would say it's more likely than not that he ends up in a situation where he's going to be a much bigger focal point. And so in turn, I think he presents pretty solid value sitting here at wide receiver 67.
Yeah, and while it's a deep NFL draft class at the receiver position, it's not a high-end draft at the position. Like, it's not a lot of guys that you can draft and get sure production in year number 1. So, Steve, actually, at wide receiver 67, regardless of how Amari Cooper played this past year, I think it's worth a look. So, good call out there by you. Appreciate that one. I'm going to move to my favorite target currently in the ADP of Underdog Fantasy. Very on-brand picks early in the season for me in 2025. I never thought I'd see my guy Breece Hall going all the way down in the 3rd round, but here we are, boys, and I get it. He definitely regressed this past year a little bit. Went from 17.1 points per game in 2023, where he was coming off a torn ACL, to 15.1 in 2024 with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Well, we got news here this past weekend down in New Orleans that, hey, there might be no more Aaron Rodgers or likely Devontae Adams on the Jets. So that means less checks going to the pass. We know Aaron Rodgers likes to manipulate the line of scrimmage, likes to change the play there. So I expect less of that. And also more touches just to go around without Devontae Adams in the mix. I'm starting to kind of get the feeling, too, that the Jets might draft a rookie, perhaps Jackson Dart, who's getting a lot of steam lately. And maybe they go back to leaning on the run a little bit as well. We saw Breece just a couple years ago, 95 targets with Zach Wilson at quarterback, who's not a good quarterback by any means, but still was able to find him in the passing game. Lions DC, Aaron Glenn, he's now the new head coach for the Jets, and he wants to win by establishing a defense that can win the game and also fresh physical style of playing ball, because that's what he does. That's what they did out in Detroit. He also brought in Lions passing game coordinator Tanner and Grandstand with him, who knew how to use Jahmyr Gibbs in several different ways as well. So like last year, I think Breece Hall still has RB1 upside, and now you're getting him in round 3. I'm all the way back in, Steve. Are you here at Breece Hall in the 3rd round?
1,000%. I was never out on Breece Hall. Like, this whole offense took a huge step back. Aaron Rodgers was legitimately the worst thing that could have happened for the New York Jets.
It was good at the end of the year, but just it
really wasn't. It was a mess. It was a mess. It was just him like chucking it at Devontae Adams as many times as he could to see what would happen. It never looked cohesive. The team kind of quit after they fired Saleh. Like, it just looked awful. The offensive line played terrible. Aaron Rodgers played terrible. Like the team just looked disjointed. There was no cohesiveness with the play calling and the scheme, and like they had no identity. It's impossible to succeed at the running back position when your team won't even bother establishing the run. So having a new head coach come in who comes from a system that is so run focused that he wants to get his running backs touches. The only thing that I worry about would be if Aaron Glenn comes in with the mentality of I want two guys touching the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would worry me a little bit because I don't know if the Jets are going to be able to put up enough points to like feed everybody. But Breece Hall is probably the second, third most talented running back in the league right now, just on talent alone. So I don't see any reason why he can't still be a superstar. It's really not on him that this offense looked so terrible.
Eric, where do you land on Breece Hall at this current ADP junction? And who else is someone you're targeting currently as it stands?
Yeah, I don't think people should be drafting Breece Hall at 28-ish overall in ADP. This is going to sound weird, but it's because I'm also bought in on what Breece Hall has to offer in the 2025 season. And I think his ADP is probably going to go down. I think the further we get into the pre-draft process, through the draft, through free agency, people are going to be pretty gun shy about investing in this Jets offense, right? Like I don't think they're going to be setting the world on fire in terms of their, offensive skill guys and just the overall outlook for their ability to move the ball. So I think we might actually see it slip down a little bit more. I also wouldn't be surprised in an RB class that is completely loaded top to bottom if we don't see them implement that two-back system. That's why he's
they got Braylon Allen. They
to
got Isaiah Davis. They got guys.
Yeah, and they drafted day two guys the year before that and the year before that, right? Like they're not shy about bringing in young guys year over year, even if it's Braylon Allen. My overarching point is with Engstrand coming in and trying to bring in this Detroit system. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up implementing two backs and we see Breece Hall's ADP fall even further. And in turn, he's going to be a better value, right? Like for me, if we want to draw comparisons, and a lot of this is speculative because we haven't seen this staff actually do it, he's very clearly the Jahmyr Gibbs of the Sonic and Knuckles combo, right? Last year alone, he was number 3 in targets. He was number 1 in route participation and in routes run. Like he can very clearly do a lot through the air. So I think the things that are going to build up in terms of the pros and cons columns are actually going to drag his ADP down. And that's the point where I want to go out and draft him. On the whole, in a vacuum, getting him as RB11, 28.1 is perfectly fine. I'm A-okay with that. I just think it's going to get a little bit better. And I think we can really be living good when we get him in the 4th round, maybe, right? So that's my only hesitation. I know it took a weird angle to get there. The next player that I want to talk about is jumping over to the wide receiver market. I'm gonna be loading up on a lot of Chris Godwin. He is sitting right now as wide receiver 35, about 66 ADP overall. Look, he suffered a pretty horrific ankle injury about the midpoint of the season, but prior to that, he was absolutely setting the world on fire. He was nearing 20 fantasy points per game, which is just certified elite company in terms of production at the wide receiver position. He was running more and more out of the slot, which we were loving to see. Josh Grizzard, the Grizzler, is now the offensive coordinator. He was there on that staff. So I think, if we see Chris Godwin return to Tampa Bay, then we can, project him pretty confidently in terms of his role and the corresponding upside. And if we don't, he becomes, if not the second best free agent option on the market, the 1B to T. Higgins 1A. So I think his likelihood of falling into a position that is favorable to him is very, very high, right? So he's a guy that I think, we get into April, into May, and we get more and more positive reports about his recovery. We have a clearer picture on where he is going to be suiting up next year. Again, in my book, I think it's kind of all positive outcomes. He's probably going to pump up to like a mid 20s, 26, 27 wide receiver off the board. And that's going to be really solid value for you.
Steve, I know you're, not technically an injury medical expert by any means, but you've definitely worked with some pretty horrific injuries in the past. Do you think this ankle that was broken for Chris Godwin, pretty, just tough scene overall? Do you think it holds him back at all here at the start of 2025? Again, this injury was suffered back in mid-October, so it's been some time already since we've seen him take the field.
Yeah, it's really all going to come down to, like, it's hard to project those injuries that far away, right? So it's going to come down to, how does he look in training camp, right? Is he going to have to take a lot of time off? If they're in training camp and you're hearing, oh yeah, Godwin's kind of being brought along slowly. Oh, we have to give him a time off. Oh, he missed a week, but it's just maintenance related. That's when you start to worry. Chris Godwin's young, and medicine is coming so far with these injuries. Like, it used to be a killer for players to tear Achilles, tear ACLs. That was career ending. And not that long ago, it was career ending. And now we have J.K. Dobbins, who came back from horrific injury after horrific injury after horrific injury and looked phenomenal last year. So if it heals to the point that he's not missing that time early, then I don't think it holds him back. And this guy was the wide receiver 1 when he was healthy. So getting him in the 30s, the 20s, the teens even, it might be a huge steal. When you want to worry is when you see, like, what happened with Christian McCaffrey, where it was, oh, he's out, but we're not really going to tell you why. Oh, he missed a day here.
Right.
He missed a week here. He's missing 2 weeks. Now the time frame is moving, and it's like, no, we think he'll be fine for the season, but maybe not. That's when you start to really worry, and you go, you know what, get off this this train, because it's going to crash. But I haven't heard any negative reports out of Chris Godwin, which is nice. So, and I'm a Chris Godwin stan. Anyone who's followed my Twitter for any amount of time knows I love Chris Godwin. It's strange. This temperature check, Eric kind of almost masqueraded as me a bit. Every pick he made, I was like, yeah, no, that's the one I wanted. He just beat me to it by a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to blame you, man. We really saw the ascension of Chris Godwin once again. It wasn't that long ago that I believe it was back in 2019 where he had that wide receiver 2 finish, and he was used in the slot, on the outside, everywhere. And then, everyone's favorite, offensive genius Dave Canales comes in and moves him purely to the outside. Liam Cohen moves him back inside. I think wherever he goes, whether he stays in Tampa Bay or whether he goes somewhere, like Eric said, he'll be featured, moved all around the field. So I like this call regardless. I think you got to take the shot where you're getting at wide receiver 35. Nice call there, Eric.
Love that call.
I'm going to throw out a guy I've talked about a ton this offseason already. Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. He's a rookie coming in, currently has an ADP of 104.2 on Underdog Fantasy, tight end 10. And I've spoken about this guy so much on this particular program, on the Fantasy Pros NFL Draft Show, that this guy's all over my search history. You just type in T into my search bar. You got Tyler Warren, and also testosterone, because I'm shooting that in my ass too. But aside from that, that was super out of left field.
What was that?
I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I don't know how people do that. Do what you want to do with your own body. But yeah, I'm not that type of guy. Either way, Tyler Warren had arguably the greatest college football season ever for a tight end, second in the entire country in receptions, 104, seventh in receiving yards as well with over 1,200. Also a former quarterback and a lethal ball carrier, 1,218 rushing yards this past year in the Andy Kotelnicki offense and Happy Valley, 4 rushing touchdowns for him as well. I think this guy, I've said it before, he gives you a Taysom Hill level rushing production possibly at times, and also could be one of the top receiving tight ends in the game. Also, rumors are coming out of Mobile and these different places where NFL draft circles are gathering, also down in the bayou there. He is being steamed up potentially a top 10, top 15 pick. So I think the team, whoever drafts him, will deploy him right away. I'm done taking tight end early in fantasy football drafts, but Tyler Warren is one of the few tight ends going at pick 100 plus that I really, really trust. I'm all the fuck in here at tight end 10 overall for Tyler Warren. Eric, you're making a lot of faces, and I don't think it was my admission earlier to my search results.
Yeah, look, anyone who doesn't know Seth personally, he is absolutely lying. My dude's been working on his gains. He is certainly on that
Thank you.
test out in these streets. There's a lot here that I'm just trying to kind of keep up with. First,
There's a
I
lot
think
to
we
unpack with
found.
that.
I think we found our icy light / tequila shot bet for this draft season, this year's draft season. I'll take the over on Tyler Warren going inside the top 15.
Whoa,
Give me
Yeah.
15 and a
really?
half.
Yeah,
I
what
will
about
happily
let's
say
let's
that
see where
he's
Vegas sets the line first. Let's see where Vegas
okay.
sets the line, then we
We'll
adjust. But
revisit this one. I don't think there's really any tight end that should warrant that type of draft capital this year, right?
Brock
It's
Bowers
not
just
that.
went top 10, brother, or
Yeah,
top
this guy
15,
is
brother.
this dude is
Yeah,
not
Brock Bowers is
Stop
not
it.
in this year's class.
Yeah,
I'm
stop.
sorry to tell all the Tyler Warren stands out there. We are not seeing Brock Bowers in this year's class again. Look, I think on the whole, my pushback against this pick in particular is just it's a complete mystery, right? And yes, chaos breeds opportunity, as I mentioned earlier. But just looking around here, like if you're going to wait that far, I would much rather target Dallas Goedert, who basically saw 6 targets in every game since he returned from injury down the stretch run for the Eagles. I would much rather target Dalton Kincaid, Evan Ingram, right? Like Kyle Pitts is probably someone in best ball specifically that I would take.
Great show,
over
guys.
Tyler
I'll see you
Warren.
later.
Look, it's just there are so many things that have to go right in terms of his landing spot. Tight end, we have been categorically spoiled over these last few years with Bowers and Sam Laporta the last 2 seasons. Like, it is so atypical to see a tight end ramp up to a high level of production that quickly. It usually takes some time, right? So there's a lot of historical things that would make me feel uncomfortable taking him at 10, right? If we're talking like 15, I think I'd feel pretty good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, any additional thoughts that aren't going to make me leave the set again?
Yeah, well, I don't know, but first off, like, let's put some respect on the Big Hurts name, okay? He has to shoot tea into his ass, okay? He was on all those commercials for the low T commercial, so you'll put some respect on
Right.
Frank Thomas's name.
The
Second,
ladies love it.
isn't Tyler Warren like 2 years away from an AARP card? Like, isn't he
Okay,
150 years old?
Wait,
Like,
I want to clarify this because we've gotten a lot of pushback lately on the channel because we put out a clip about Tyler Warren. There are some misconceptions right now on the internet about his age. There's some resources saying he's 25, other ones saying he's 22. Based on what I could tell, I did a lot of digging on this. He is 22. So he is not.
why is it a mystery? Why is it a mystery? What is he, a Little League World Series player? I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was
is
gonna
this?
say he's
Look,
like a Dominican baseball prospect.
Yeah, like, what is, like,
Look,
Can't find that birth certificate anywhere.
there's a guy on
what
Twitter.
does
I just
Wikipedia said?
I
What
just
does
saw
Wikipedia say?
I just saw someone post this the other day on Twitter, and they're like, "Yeah, we're already 30 plus days into 2025, and I still have no idea how old Tyler Warren is." It is a great mystery. It is a national treasure quest. Finding the age of Tyler Warren. If you have his birth records, if you have his high school diploma, let us know. If you went to school with this guy, like if you got anything on him, let us know. But just in the class he came in with and the class he went out with, he is 22 years old by those measures. That's all I can say on
All
that.
I'm saying is that he had good receiving numbers because he had no one else to catch the ball on that team. Like, he was up against no other competition. It took him forever to break out. Like, he's fine with the ball in his hands, and that's great. Like, and everyone wants to be like, he's the next Taysom Hill. Well, there's only one team in the NFL that deploys a Taysom Hill. So unless the Saints
there's another former coach that started doing that. Let's not forget up in Denver, baby. Also, that's number pick 20, Eric. Woo.
Like,
Yeah.
Let's listen. This guy, I don't see it. I don't see it. I've watched the tape. I've watched him. I've tried to get on board with you because you're my boss and all that shit. But like, this dude ain't it. And look at that picture. That's not a tight end one. Look at that.
Again, this is not an accurate picture. This guy looks nothing like this. So stop.
Yes, he does. That's him.
No,
He
he
can
looks
grow a
like
beard
TJ
all he wants.
Hawkinson. All right.
He can grow a beard all he wants. That's underneath whatever's going on
This
with
guy
his
looks
hair.
like Thor. This guy looks like Thor.
No, because if Thor shaved, he wouldn't look like that.
Before Thor
Like,
got fat, but
This dude looks like he should be at his bar mitzvah. Like that's what he looks like. Like it's just like he just kind of just looks goofy.
All right, we're
And
moving forward. I've had enough of the Warren slander. I don't mean to cut you off, but
he's also not the tight end 1 in this class. That's my last point.
all right. Well, let's
Not the tight end 2 either.
we'll agree to disagree. Maybe we'll put. I don't want to put out another Tyler Warren clip on the internet because we got buried for the last one. So maybe we'll do that. We'll see. I don't know if I. Yeah. Okay. Moving forward here. Let's go to busts. Steve, you got 2 of them. Let's start out with one. Let's start with Brian Thomas Jr., a guy we talked about last week. We discussed whether we like Brian Thomas Jr. at 11.3 ADP or Malik Neighbors right around that 12.0 ADP. These guys have kind of been flip-flopping back and forth since that episode. And you and I were kind of both on the same page that a lot had to go right for Brian Thomas Jr. to be a wide receiver 1. And maybe we're taking things a little too far now.
It definitely feels like we're taking things too far. I mean, a lot had to go weirdly enough wrong for the Jaguars for it to go right for Brian Thomas Jr. because no Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis was pretty much a non-factor. Evan Ingram got hurt. Trevor Lawrence got hurt. It turned into like an absolute, like just sling it around by Mac Jones kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of Brian Thomas Jr.'s points last year came from like wildly busted coverage. Like he was just standing by himself in the middle of the field. And I'm not one to be like, oh, it was broken plays that contributed to his stats. His stats are his stats, but you can't count on that year over year of busted plays. That's where it doesn't translate. Brian Thomas Jr. is a very good football player. He's a very talented football player. I just don't think he's going to be a high end, like wide receiver 1. And if you're drafting him at the 11th pick, you're passing on significant talent to do so. And I just don't see him really claiming that spot. I just don't think he's such a vertical threat that I just don't know if it's sustainable. He's going to be very up and down. And even if he does at the end of the day kind of wind up as your wide receiver, like 10, 11, it's going to be those big boomer bust kind of games. A lot of times he's going to resemble a lot of Jameson Williams. I think he's just a little more talented, Jameson Williams. And that's not someone I want to invest the 11th pick in my draft in.
Yeah, it's really tough with BTJ because I think he's extremely talented. I think he could potentially be one of the best wide receivers in the league. But at the same time, I didn't see him deployed like a Jamar Chase or someone who was moved around the field quite a bit and was moved in the slot, out of the slot, was used on screens, was used on short crossers. It was a lot of high A-dot passing. So, Eric, does that concern you at all with BTJ? Just the fact that it was a lot of touchdowns for a rookie. I mean, he scored a shit ton of touchdowns, I think 17 or something the year before at LSU. So this guy does have a nose for the end zone and to find pay dirt. But at the same time, it's hard to get invested here at a top 12 ADP.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm not quite as concerned as the 2 of you. I think his price is high, right? But I wouldn't move him down like several tiers, right? I'd probably slot him in somewhere in like the Lad McConkey, Tyreek Hill,
Yeah, sure. If you
type
want
of range, right? Like 6-7 spots down. So
yeah,
I definitely think that the market is overreacting because rookie have big season, must have big season again next year is a lot of the early offseason analysis, and that's not often the case. But look, I think there's a lot to be excited about with Brian Thomas Jr., right? If he can put up this type of production off of the lackluster arm and decision making of Mac Jones, he can certainly rise up and overcome circumstance for maybe a slower developing T-Law or whatever happens in front of him in the season in front of him at quarterback. I think he can overcome it. Fair point about, a lot of his teammates going down, right? That was really where he completely exploded. But I mean, he had several huge games while they were still at full health, right? Week 4, 22 points, week 5, 23 points, week 7, 22 points, right? Like, his production was a little lumpy at the first, the first kind of half of the season, but down that stretch run, granted, he was the only one, the last man standing.
He's the league winner.
He was just completely going nuts, and his peripheral stats are painting a pretty solid picture. So, if nothing else, I think it's fair to project regression, and that would probably have me put him at like 12 13.
Okay.
I'm certainly not clicking the button at the end of the first round if I'm in that position.
Okay.
Yeah, no way.
Fair enough. I will throw out my next bust. We'll get a little more rapid fire with these picks. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs, currently with an ADP of 47.7 and QB6 right now. And look, we have started to take this shift as a program. Eric, you were really the one who kind of put us on this mindset, but we're back on our bullshit of fading high-priced onesie positions. QB 11 this past year in points per game, QB 12 in points per game in 2023. And now we're fucking drafting Patrick Mahomes at the end of the fourth round, QB 6. Makes zero sense to me. Chiefs are not interested in blowing out teams. It's a survive and advance. Like, that's the mindset for them, baby. And you know, they survived and advanced all the way to the last dance and did not win that game. But regardless, like, Mahomes also had his lowest amount of rushing attempts of his career this past year. I think that was more circumstance than maybe necessarily game plan, but still, like, he was very clearly trying to play check down ball even after the loss of Rashee Rice. And like, that bomb to Xavier Worthy in the Super Bowl when they were down by 1 million, that felt like the first time we've seen him do that in ages. Like I have not, I mean, it's there. He can hit deep shots, but even with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, I think there are just better quarterbacks out there for fantasy who can provide more rushing upside and big playability. So I'm fading Patrick Mahomes. Steve, you're fading another favorite of the fantasy community, Derrick Henry, running back for Baltimore, currently going right outside the first round. What are you disliking about Henry's current price tag?
That he doesn't catch passes. That's the problem. It's not a Derrick Henry issue. It's just he doesn't catch passes. And that's so hard to replicate. RB5 without really having any contribution through the air. He's another year older. And I know he keeps defying time. But at some point,
dude's Thanos, yeah.
Like, I mean, at some point, and time, unfortunately, is undefeated. It just is. And he's at a position where he took a lot of carries this year. A lot of carries this year. And he's done that for a long time. I know he has. But I just can't justify RB5. And we even saw it down the stretch. He wasn't the same guy. He wasn't that absolute you early in the season, the first half of the season, we were all saying, if you have Derrick Henry on your team, you're probably winning the championship because he's so unbelievably dominant right now. And then it kind of went away, and he's touchdown dependent to a degree because he doesn't catch passes. I don't like that. There's too high a degree of just variable with touchdowns for me. So I'm going to move away from Derrick Henry at this price tag. Now, if he drops the RB 8, 9, 10 range, then I'm in. Then I'm in for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're drafting him closer to his ceiling. And, you know, there's all this news coming out lately on the internet. Like, the government, we're starting to have this new thing where we're like declassifying a bunch of government secrets and stuff. I would not be surprised if we learn through that process that like Derrick Henry does have a time stone in his back pocket or something, because this guy does absolutely defy time. But at the same,
he does.
You know, at the same point in juncture, it was only 2 years ago in 2023 where he wasn't good really for fantasy because, like you said, Steve, he would get, 30, 40 rushing yards in a game, not score a touchdown, taken off the field for Tyjae Spears in Tennessee, and it kind of poo-pooed him a little bit. So I don't think that happens necessarily in a huge way, but it's a great running back class. So they could absolutely add talent at that position that could spell him a little bit more like a Tyjae Spears type of situation. Eric, is that what you're concerned here with your last bust of the night as well? You're going with Chase Brown, running back for the Bengals, a guy I love, a guy that I've been a stand for, someone I was pounding the table for all 2024 and came fruition, was a borderline RB1, but you don't like him in 2025. What is it about the current price tag that's driving you off him?
It's specifically that. It's the price tag and the presumed split workload that is in front of him. I also stand for Chase Brown. He is my second highest exposed running back in terms of my dynasty
Illinois,
teams.
baby.
But look, like when an NFL front office tells you who they are, believe them, right? Like they've gone out and they've spent good money to acquire people like Zach Moss, to spell and split the workload there in the backfield. And I mean, a lot of Chase Brown's productivity, yes, he looked, well above average to very good with the ball in his hand, but a lot of that was based on elite utilization and elite workload, right? Number 5 in rushing attempt share, number 3 in opportunity share out of the backfield, and that was with a split backfield for a good chunk of the year to start off the season, right? So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see another guy come in, whether it's a rookie, whether it's someone in free agency, to just spell Chase Brown a little bit. And then you look around him, at this point where he's going off the board, running back 12, about pick 35. You've got guys like Joe Mixon, who should have the opportunity all to himself, Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, who's now in a Kubiak system, right? There's more guys surrounding him that I feel better about their opportunity at this point, right? There's a world where they decide to do nothing, and I can look very silly for this position, but they've had plenty of opportunity to do that, and they haven't exactly jumped at it so far.
Yeah, I think it's a great point because there is a world where Chase Brown resumes this high workload, this high volume workload, exactly what we saw him do in Champaign when he was with Illinois, tearing up the Big Ten for years. Like this was the profile coming out. And like it was very, very much like Christian McCaffrey's collegiate profile. That's why I flocked to Chase Brown. Like it was very similar usage. And we saw that exact thing this past year. So it was like the gates to heaven opened up and it felt great. And but you are right. This is such a loaded running back class. If they do go out and add someone else, you would think they would at least maybe take a day 3 gander. And there's so many good guys out there. Like I think like Brashard Smith fits this offense so much coming out of SMU. He's a guy who can catch the ball a little bit. He's someone who I think would spell Chase Brown very nicely in that RB2 role. So I think there's so many guys out there you could kind of throw that same comp on. So good call out for you guys. I appreciate the look into the current ADP. I think it's always important to kind of survey the landscape before we jump into things like mock draft and actually start putting pen to paper here. So I appreciate that. Let's go ahead. Let's round out the show with a game we like to call a little off the top.
Just a little off the top. Ain't talking about a fade or a crop. Steady hand, know when to stop. Just a little off the top. Whoa, easy now.
It's just a little off the top. I'm going to give these gentlemen a list of potential cut nominees for different categories, and you can go ahead and then cut one. I want to start with cut one late round rookie quarterback prospect from your Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. Quinn Ewers coming out of Texas. Former 5-star recruit, top quarterback prospect in his class, goes from Ohio State down to Texas, was having some Heisman hopeful seasons, got injured a few times, kind of derailed that pretty stinky end of his season, really, and his tenure down there in Texas. A lot of people wanted Arch Manning. Riley Leonard, another option here to cut. He spent his first 3 seasons at Duke, 2 under Mike Elko, then links up with Marcus Freeman up in South Bend, Indiana. By no means a prototypical NFL quarterback. However, another guy who could be potentially used in a Taysom Hill-like role, 900 rushing yards this past year, 17 trips to pay dirt, including just an awesome championship performance from him on the first drive where he just really put Notre Dame on his back. Will Howard, another guy in these Superflex Dynasty streets a lot of people are talking about right now. After 4 seasons at Kansas State, he uses the transfer portal, goes to Ohio State, leads them to a national championship, also led the Big Ten in completion percentage, passing yards, passing touchdowns. Still feels incredibly tough to evaluate, though, because thrown to one of the best freshman wide receivers we potentially ever saw in college football, Jeremiah Smith, also Mecca Ibuka, and Kyle McCord's the last quarterback going throughout here as well. 3 seasons in Columbus for him. 1 as a starter. He transfers to upstate New York to Syracuse, links up with Fran Brown. The Orange go 10-3 in the ACC. Also led the country in completions, attempts, passing yards, plus also finished 5th in the nation with 34 passing touchdowns. However, we know this guy's a gunslinger, can be a bit reckless with the ball. he finished 5th in the country with interceptions with 12 of them. That includes 5 against Kyle's Pitt Panthers down by the river in October. So, Eric, I'm going to throw them out one more time. Quinn Ewers, Riley Leonard, Will Howard, or Kyle McCord. Who are you cutting from your rookie draft board?
I feel like it's a pretty clear cut with Riley Leonard here, right? Like,
Whoa,
he runs pretty well. He's got an okay arm, right? You know, he can put things together in stretches, like you said, right? You come out white hot to open that playoff game. But then you zoom out and you look at the whole of his film and the whole of his career, and the guy can't throw. Like, poor processor, poor decision maker, doesn't really have a special trait that you can point out. He can run okay athleticism, but like I think he projects like a weird combination of like Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis at the next level. So I think it's bang on that you're pointing to Taysom Hill, because I would be surprised if we see him get more than like 4 pass attempts per game in his NFL career.
Steve, what about you? Who are you cutting out of this lot?
It's Riley Leonard. It's not particularly close for me either.
Wow.
I think nothing you saw from him this year indicated that he was even coming close to being an NFL quarterback. He's an undrafted free agent kind of guy. Teams aren't going to give him a sniff at throwing that football. I mean, it's just not there. The talent isn't there, and that's not, not to be rude, it just isn't. Compared to these guys who can sling it around the field, Riley Leonard can't. He doesn't have good arm strength, doesn't have good accuracy, and doesn't process the field quick enough. No quarterback, no go.
I think it's Quinn Ewers for me that I'm cutting, and specifically because of the price tag. I think he'll be the most expensive out of this group, and I think he has potentially the lowest ceiling. Like, felt like a guy kind of at the end of his Texas tenure that was just kind of over it. You know, he got offered a lot of money allegedly by Big Ten program to go back for one more year of college football, and I think just after failing to live up to the hype of the number 1 prospect in his class, he's like, nah, I'm good. I'll take my talents to the NFL. And I think he's someone who might go in the second, early 3rd round of Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. So it's a no from me, dog. I'm good on that. He had some, plays down the stretch. He was really good at finding his running backs on wheel routes, was really good at, extending plays at times and finding guys like Matthew Golden. But at the same time, very bad pocket awareness for Quinn Ewers. I think that hurts him at the next level severely. Not the most mobile guy that's been banged up with injuries. So Quinn Ewers for the cost, I'm out on him.
I like that too.
Let's go ahead. Let's move forward here. Cut 1 2026 NFL MVP long shot at current odds. Jamar Chase, 150-1. Just after going for the Triple Crown, he's already in triple-digit territory. Michael Penix Jr., 60-1 in his sophomore season for the Atlanta Falcons. And then Derrick Henry, a guy we touched on earlier in the program, another year older, someone who we think might have the time stone in his back pocket, 100-1 for the Baltimore Ravens. Eric, if you have to cut one of these guys from your betting card, if you're looking for a long shot, who is it?
It's probably Derrick Henry. Look, MVP is a quarterback award, right? So just, by proxy of that function, there's only one quarterback on this list. So Michael Penix is not getting cut, although I think 60-1 is a laughable price tag for him.
Agreed.
Jamar Chase, like if he goes out and repeats this type of season, or maybe even improves upon it with a theoretical increase to his workload with the exit of T. Higgins, like I think he can potentially be in this conversation and make 150-1 look pretty solid. But I mean, ultimately, something absolutely magical would have to happen for a non-quarterback to win this award. Look at the season that Saquon Barkley had this year, right? If even with that was not even sniffing that award, right? So it's really got to be. I think the days of the running backs having the type of role that would be requisite to be in this conversation are well behind us.
Yeah, I'm with you. Derrick Henry at 100-1 just feels super short. It feels something that we're kind of just taking advantage maybe of some rookie bettors who know the name Derrick Henry, remember what he did this past season, and look, we are a program particularly high who bet all his season overs. We bet the touchdowns. We bet the rushing yards. He hit him in week 10. It was glorious. But at the same time, I think you're right. Like with Saquon Barkley going over 2,000 yards and still finishing third in the MVP voting, 100 to 1, Steve, just feels way too short, especially when Jamar Chase $50 better at 150 to 1.
Yeah, and the problem is Saquon Barkley finished third, and it was like a massively distant third. Like he wasn't even close to being
Not
the
a
MVP.
not a
It's not
single
like,
first place vote.
yeah, like I mean, this is such a quarterback. Like, yeah, this is a
Some
quarterback.
people were voting Justin Herbert over him. It was crazy.
Right. I mean, it's really a quarterback's award to the point that, like, honestly, cut Derrick Henry, cut Jamar Chase. You're wasting your money putting it on anyone other than a quarterback. Jamar Chase would actually, I think, have to set 2 different records to become the MVP. I think he would have to set either the receptions and yards or receptions and touchdowns or yards and touchdowns record combined, like both of them, in order to win the MVP over a quarterback. That's just where we're at, because Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are both running for 500, 600, 700 yards.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels is going to have another season in the NFL. Like, this isn't going to anyone other than a quarterback. They've split it, and they've obviously split it, right? That the NFL's acknowledged now. The offensive player of the year goes to anything but a quarterback, and the MVP goes to a quarterback. So your best bet in this is Penix.
To add insult to injury to this, if Jamar Chase goes out and sets those 2 records, Joe Burrow is winning the MVP.
Right.
I will just say, though, I think Chase, out of this entire group, this lot we're looking at, does have some value, specifically because if you go place this bet at FanDuel, where I believe I took these odds from, there's a great chance that they might hedge themselves and you could get a cash out option with Jamar Chase. I mean, I was riding that 65 to 1 Travis Hunter Heisman ticket last year, and it was pretty early in the season. They were offering me some really good payouts. Luckily, we rode that John out. But so that's a way to look at it too, is you can get some early line opening value. I'm sure we're going to explore the NFL MVP market in a future episode of the show, but something I kind of just want to throw out to you. And speaking of MVP, remember how a couple weeks ago before the playoffs, I threw out a future to you guys, Joe Burrow, comeback player of the year, parlayed with Josh Allen, -144. Oh, was that a sweater? Oh my God. That was one of those bets that hit, boys, that was like, I'm grateful for it hit, but I had no business making that bet at that price tag that I did, especially the fact that I put 8 units on it. That was a fucking sweater. That was probably the biggest sweat. I already crossed it off that I was probably losing that bet. So thank you to the MVP voters. Thank you, Dan Orlovsky. Thank you, Tone Diggs. Thank you, Emmanuel Ocho, for many things, but especially that. We appreciate you. All right.
I got it wrong.
Well, it's a conversation for another time. Cut 1 halftime show performance. Kendrick Lamar, Usher, Rihanna, or the Rap Legends concert. These are the past 4 halftime shows. We're cutting one. Steve, you're an entertainment betting expert here at IBT. You got your own show for it, Popcorn and Root Beer. What are you thinking here? Where do you kind of grade Kendrick Lamar's performance overall? And if you had to cut one on this list, who is it?
Speaking about Kendrick, I thought that was a phenomenal halftime show. I am not a real rap fan, but I really enjoyed what he did. I thought the visuals were unbelievable. His showmanship was unbelievable. His performance was really strong. And we got the meme of maybe the decade out of it now. I mean, we got, it's crazy that he went on national TV in front of the biggest audience he possibly could and did that.
Can I add to that real quickly, and I'll get back to you? But I actually look, I'm old school. I like rap beef. I like beef in general. That's cool. But to use, your biggest platform you're potentially ever going to get and expose people to your music who might have never heard of you. I just think it was a wasted opportunity to throw it was a 20-minute slight at Drake. Really, there were some Kendrick bangers that were in the back pocket that I was like, when are we going to play it? Where is it? And
none of them are not like us.
Well,
Not Like Us is his biggest song by far. It had to be played.
No, I understand, but there are a lot of other of the diss tracks about Drake that were kind of on there, and Serena Williams? Did we really have to go that
I
route?
love
Like,
it. I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, listen, rap beefs, like realistically, like this is pretty tame for like, I mean, people used to die over these things. I mean, Biggie and Tupac died over rap beefs. I mean,
people
these are
might be dying over these according to Kendrick.
well, you know what? I think it solidified Kendrick as a rap legend. I truly do. I don't think too many guys can look and say, I went on the Super Bowl halftime show in front of 133 million people and called Drake a pedophile right to his face, like on national TV. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just felt a little distasteful, is all.
No, it's awesome. I love it. I'm Team Petty all the way. So that being said, I am gonna cut Usher. His halftime show. I don't think it moved the needle the way the other three did. It didn't become like a cultural moment. Rihanna was pregnant, floating in the air, being all ethereal.
Yeah.
Kendrick did what he did and set the tone, and also had a lot of commentary going on. And then the rap legends all came together for the first time really ever in our lifetimes in the
That was
Super Bowl.
badass.
And it was like hip hop from like generations of hip hop. It was Dre and Eminem and Kendrick and 50. It was crazy. Usher isn't really holding up comparatively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I think the Rap Legends was probably my favorite Super Bowl halftime show of at least the 2020 decade. Eric, where do you kind of lean on this? Did you also enjoy Kendrick's just, mop of the floor of Drake on Sunday? Where does that rank for you, and who are you cutting out of this lot?
Man, I have so many thoughts. I could do another hour on this one question in particular. I'm over the moon, thrilled and satisfied with what Kendrick put out there this Sunday. Right, like fair point. Right, like he's out there making it about his beef with.
Did
with
he even
Drake
play swimming pools? I don't think he played swimming pools.
No, but look, that's
you get 13 minutes.
That's not a song you're rolling out there at
songs.
halftime, right? Like it's too chill, it's too sleepy. Look, his discography is insane, right? He could put on a performance for an hour and still miss a dozen songs that people are going to be clamoring for. To your point, the people that are being introduced to his music through this, like they still saw some of his best tracks and some of his best work. The messaging and the symbolism in it was beautiful, and the thing to underscore, it's really twofold. One, my dude bringing back the low-rise acid wash jeans, like I'm going out to the club in the early 2000s, right?
Cool.
Like I've been in the trenches with those jeans before, so definitely pulled on the nostalgia strings. But Steve nailed it. Like, it was so petty. And in the year of our Lord 2025, we have unabashed permission to be petty. I completely love it. Look, in terms of who I'm going to cut here, we've kind of got a dichotomy, right? Like, we've got the individual star with a crazy track record and discography, and then we've got the ensemble spectacle cast. And I'm kind of a basic bro. I like the ensemble, so there's no way that I'm cutting the rap legends. There's no way that I'm cutting Usher, right? Like, these were absolutely star-studded. The rap legends. You want to talk about memes of all time? When 50 Cent's hanging upside down, rapping, looking like he got stung by bees, like, that is still one of my favorite memes to go out there. So it's between Kendrick and Rihanna, and I'm just not here for the whole like ethereal vibe. I think side by side, I would give the edge to Kendrick. So reluctantly cutting Rihanna, but shout out Jay-Z and Rock Nation. Like, this generation of halftime show has been incredibly entertaining.
I think we've had like a solid decade run on the halftime show.
I mean, now that it's not Bruno Mars every year, I mean, that just ran its course. I felt like every time I love
Bruno Mars, though.
But we didn't need three freaking Bruno Mars. I mean, how many this guy was every damn year?
He was a guest on a couple. He won himself and then he guested. But like, I thought Gaga's was amazing. Beyonce's was obviously amazing. I even liked Madonna's. Like, we've had a stretch. Like, people love to bitch about the halftime show. I'm like, we haven't had too many. Like, the Black Eyed Peas is the last one I can think of that was like absolute dog. A lot of the old whites was rough.
A lot of the old whites were not fans of Kendrick, but
and now I'm hearing like
expected.
That is a feature, not a bug. Having to explain all this stuff to the old whites that were watching it with me was maybe the highlight second to the
There
Eagles
is
just
an
completely
age, and I
dominating.
would love to know what it is, where people like pretty uniformly hated this halftime show, and I would love
Yeah.
to know what age it was. It was probably like 45, like, and they were
I
like, "This is
think it's
trash."
like early to mid 50s is closer to that line.
Eric and
I just,
Steve, back in the
yeah.
day, you guys were back in the day. You were clubbing with your jeans like Kendrick. You were
What do you mean?
drinking
First off, I
you're
was
drinking
not
Four
clubbing in the early
Locos.
2000s. I was in elementary school, so like I
Well, I'm
wasn't
just no,
clubbing.
I'm talking like late 2000 or early
Early
2010s or so.
2000s.
Yeah, no,
I
like
didn't turn 21 until 2014.
Four Locos were around then. The real Four Locos. So you were dogging some
Right.
Four Locos, getting that little
Down in
caffeine.
Florida State.
Yeah, down in what is it? Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Yeah, there you go. Well, gentlemen, I am sad to say, but I believe that will do it for us today. It's been a great episode. Want to shout out my guy Kyle Scott in the background as always for holding this program down. Eric, Steve, thank you guys so much for your analysis as well. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveLawson_93. You can also find Eric at FantasyNab. I'm between _Seth FF. Kyle is to Kyle, to Scott. Our entire brand is at IBT_media. Easiest way to support us. So it's just like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Check out inbetweenmedia.com. We got a bunch of great written content for you over there. And Draft Night Out tickets and IBT Classic tickets are on sale now. If you want to come hang out with us, hit some long straight bombs, enjoy some beers out on Friday morning of the Fantasy Football Expo, or if you just want to hang out, draft some teams, hang out, we got you there as well. For Eric, for Steve, and for Kyle, my name's Seth Wilcock. Take care, y'all. We'll see you next week. Until then, y'all know what to do. Keep it in between. Thank you.